Hey there, awesome viewers. Welcome back to Manhwa Empire Recap. Before we dive into today's recap, we want to hear from you. Drop your favorite genre of manhwa or manga in the comments below, and let us know where you're watching from. Your feedback helps us bring you the content you love. Now, let's jump into today's recap and explore the incredible stories we have for you.
The story kicks off at King Shan Mental Hospital, where the MC finds themselves confined to room 666. The room had this chilly vibe with the wind sneaking in through the window. But despite being all tied up, looking kinda pale and gloomy, MC still had that smile going on. MC had a visitor who seemed quite sadistic and was the one responsible for tying him up. However, strangely enough, this visitor appeared to have some interest in helping MC, especially since MC believed that electricity could heal his body. And as the visitor started poking the wires in, sparks flew around a bit. It might sound a bit daredevilish, but both MC and his visitor were eagerly awaiting the outcome. As the electricity surged through MC's body, the current was so strong that it made his room shine brightly. Due to their crazy experiment, room 666 triggered an emergency alarm. It turned out that the visitor was also a patient in the mental hospital, and the nurses were furious because this wasn't the first time they had caused a ruckus. After the crazy stunt, MC got taken care of by the nurses, but he didn't look as fixed up as he thought he would. As they rushed him into the ambulance, the nurses also grabbed MC's buddy for the ride. As they brought him into the ambulance, foam started forming in MC's mouth. Meanwhile, the friend took on a doctor-like role, instructing the nurses to jot down MC's details. The friend's attempts to take charge led the nurses to give him a free ride in the ambulance for a checkup. So, both MC and the friend ended up in the ambulance, but the friend seemed to be having a bit of a moment. As the ambulance rolled out, the director of the mental hospital peeked through the window to watch them go. He couldn't help but reminisce about some of his quirky patients, like that astronomer who was dead set on the Earth being square. Besides the astronomer who thought the Earth was square, there was a professor of medicine who believed he had a pill that could make a man pregnant. And then there was another patient who fancied himself a fortune teller, claiming to know when doomsday would arrive. Despite all his patients' eccentricities, the director of King Shan Mental Hospital, named Shihag, saw their strange beliefs as nothing more than hobbies. However, dealing with MC, whose name was Lin Fan, and his friend Zhang proved to be quite a headache for Shihag. Shihag found it stressful because Lin Fan and Zhang always managed to harm others whenever they had an episode. Meanwhile, in the ambulance, Lin Fan was currently receiving treatment. Zhang had a needle in hand and couldn't help but wonder how Lin Fan was doing during the treatment. Lin Fan replied that he was feeling fantastic, mentioning that all the acupoints in his body were open, and he even claimed to have seen the ends of the universe. Surprisingly, Lin Fan seemed unfazed by the needle, instead recalling hearing a voice that addressed him as master to Dao Vu. On that morning at Taishan Mountain, chaos erupted in nature. As animals panicked, disturbed by a mystical monster composed of the fire attribute that was terrorizing them. Folks gave it a shot at battling these monsters, but they ended up getting trounced. The situation at Taishan Mountain became so serious that it made headlines, and citizens were urged to steer clear of the area. During the chaos, a surgery was underway to bring forth the hero. This individual, recognized by the system as the strongest man, was being prepared for activation. Doctors were jotting down notes about Lin Fan's burns caused by the electricity. They were getting ready with scalpels to remove the copper wires that were wrapped around him. The doctors also made a note of Lin Fan's stable blood pressure during the examination. Before diving into the surgery, the surgeon geared up to give Lin Fan some heavy-duty level 7 anesthesia. But being his usual self, Lin Fan thought he was already feeling pretty good. He explained that the burns were just his body's way being purified. He even tried to play the hero card, saying it was all part of the plan to let the doctors work their magic. But the doctor wasn't exactly amused, especially since Lin Fan was the one responsible for those burns in the first place. Lin Fan was adamant that he didn't need anesthesia, convinced that enduring pain would somehow train his mind to superhuman levels. Despite his insistence, the doctors were still keen on giving him anesthesia for the surgery. Lin Fan tried to strike a deal with the doctors, saying that if they gave him the anesthetic, he wouldn't pay the fee. However, despite the unconventional negotiation, the doctor still proceeded with giving him the anesthetic. Lin Fan put on a tough front, convinced that his mind could resist the effects of anesthesia. However, reality caught up with him, and his consciousness eventually faded away. In his slumber, Lin Fan drifted back to his childhood, thinking it would magically turn into metal. He was so daredevilish that he attempted to torch his own ding-dong, thinking that he don't need his extra meat. Fortunately, Lin Fan's mother intervened just in time, preventing a scenario that could have made their family tree go extinct. Lin Fan's mother took action the next day and brought him to the mental hospital due to his intrusive thoughts and wild ideas. After reading the report, she learned that Lin Fan was classified as a level 5 mental patient. He may not pose a threat to society, he was considered a danger to himself. After his dream, Lin Fan underwent the surgery and was admitted to a room, specifically room number 3. Meanwhile, Zhang sat beside him, munching on a banana. Lin Fan, covered in bandages to aid in the healing of his burnt skin, was feeling optimistic about leveling up. Zhang and Lin Fan shared similar vibes, as Zhang had been delving into some crazy experimental ideas, including researching a new needleplay manual. Lin Fan was quite intrigued when Zhang mentioned that this new version of needleplay was an upgraded and improved edition. Zhang went ahead with the acupuncture, labeling it the universe level. Once the needles were in place, he turned to Lin Fan and asked him about his sensations. Zhang was pretty amused when Lin Fan mentioned hearing voices in his head. But just like that, Lin Fan's consciousness decided to take another unscheduled nap. Lin Fan's heart rate took a dip as he drifted off to sleep. The nurse on duty in their room quickly glanced at the heart monitor to ensure everything was all right. The nurse, in a bit of a panic, urgently called the doctors to rush in and assist Lin Fan without delay. And so, Lin Fan found himself back in the emergency room once more, ready to receive the proper care. The doctor who operated on Lin Fan was absolutely livid. His appetite was completely ruined after dealing with Lin Fan's post-surgery scenario. Meanwhile, the sun shone brightly at the King Shan Mental Hospital. Shihag's assistant informed him that he had reached out to the Baihai Cemetery, asking if they were interested in buying a grave. Shihag decided to cancel the plan, and his assistant relayed the cemetery's request for them to bring the corpse if they were serious about purchasing. His assistant, feeling a bit sheepish since they had dialed the cemetery's number a grand total of 80 times already, Shihag was suddenly startled by a phone call that caught him off guard. Shihag picked up the phone, only to be bombarded by the doctor's rant about how many times he had saved Lin Fan's life. The doctor, named Lai Fu, the vice president of Huatia Hospital, expressed frustration, feeling like the mental institution had been playing games with their hospital. Meanwhile, Shihag instructed his assistant not to inform the cemetery about Lin Fan being fine just yet. The assistant found himself in a whirlwind of confusion as the situation escalated. Meanwhile, Lai Fu was on a rant spree, grumbling about how he had to play emergency room tag with Lin Fan just 30 minutes after saving him. Lai Fu was absolutely fuming as Lin Fan's extended stay was giving his patients the heebie-jeebies. He laid into Shihag that maybe next time he'd personally chop up Lin Fan. Lai Fu's stress levels skyrocketed, causing his aura to darken considerably. Frustrated and irritated by Lin Fan's situation, he made the impulsive decision to smash the phone down. Meanwhile, outside the emergency room where Lin Fan was admitted, Zhang was playing the waiting game, pondering whether his acupuncture had missed the mark. While Zhang was yapping like a hyperactive kitten, some patients in the hospital were trying to dodge him, thinking he looked a bit off his rocker. But Zhang, being the curious cat he was, decided to play guinea pig and try acupuncture on himself. Zhang's DIY acupuncture adventure ended with him calling for help from the nurses, feeling half like a popsicle. Instead of unlocking secret powers or hearing mystical voices, Zhang just ended up taking an unplanned nap. In the emergency room, the doctor reminisced about the days when Lai Fu had promised him that the hospital would expand his knowledge in surgeries. The nurses expressed their concern for the doctor's well-being, understanding now why Lai Fu had promised him that he will encounter a lot of dangerous surgeries. He couldn't forget after signing the contract, he had patched up Lin Fan for 48 times and Lin Fan was practically tapping on the gates of the afterlife. The doctor's tears flowed freely as he realized he had treated Lin Fan so many times, it felt like they were practically roommates at this point. The nurses rallied around the doctor, helping him wipe away not just his tears, but also the snot and sweat that came with his emotional outburst. Meanwhile, Lin Fan heard the familiar voices again, but it wasn't just a figment of his imagination as a status window materialized right in front of him. The status window that appeared before Lin Fan resembled those seen in video games, offering him choices and interactions akin to a player's interface. The system decided to choose for Lin Fan since he was still asleep. As the system acted autonomously, it decided to enhance Lin Fan's body according to his long-held desires. Later that evening, precisely at 5 p.m., there was an update regarding the situation at Taishan Mountain. Although the level 7 monster was defeated, a multitude of other monsters had managed to escape, adding to the ongoing turmoil in the area. Lai Fu patiently waited for Lin Fan at the ambulance, ready to escort him back to the mental hospital. However, Lin Fan's surgery ended up taking much longer than anticipated. After a bit of waiting, Lin Fan's surgery was successful, much to the nurse's delight as she informed the doctor about the positive outcome. Upon hearing the news, Lai Fu wasted no time, yelling for Lin Fan to be placed in the ambulance. Surprisingly, Lai Fu took it upon himself to drive the ambulance, indicating a strong desire to confront the mental hospital directly. Lai Fu, eager to hit the road, wasted no time in firing up the ambulance's engines. However, the nurse quickly caught his attention, reminding him that there was still one more patient who needed transportation. Lai Fu's jaw practically hit the floor when he realized there was another crazy passenger waiting for a ride. The nurse bounced over to Lai Fu and informed him that Dr. Wang had a little something up his surgical sleeve for Lai Fu. As the nurse unveiled the item that Dr. Wang wanted to give, Lai Fu's expression shifted to one of complete surprise. The nurse presented Lai Fu with a surgical mask, its fabric stained with Dr. Wang's blood, bearing a message about his intention to resign. Shihag, amidst the chaos of the mental hospital, found solace in praying to Buddha. With a heartfelt prayer, he reverently spoke his name. Shihag, standing by the window of the mental hospital, silently hoped for a peaceful day without any return visits from Lin Fan. His gaze lingered on the hospital gates, wishing for a break from the hospital drama. However, the distant sound of a siren pierced the air. To his surprise, Lin Fan made yet another dramatic entrance back at the mental hospital. Hai Hag, trying to make sense of it all, approached Lai Fu, the designated escort for Lin Fan's hospital adventures. Shihag couldn't believe Lin Fan was back so soon, especially with his recent injuries still fresh. It was as if Shihag had reached his limit with the antics of Zhang and Lin Fan, as he hinted at the need for teamwork between himself and Lai Fu. Lai Fu's mood darkened as Shihag made a request for Zhang and Lin Fan to have an extended staycation at the hospital. Lai Fu's patience finally reached its limit, leading him to kneel down in frustration. His unexpected actions startled the nurses, who couldn't help but notice his fed-up expression. Lai Fu expressed his frustration, emphasizing that if they were truly friends, Shihag should stop causing chaos in his hospital. He couldn't help but point out that dealing with Zhang and Lin Fan's craziness was driving his best doctor up the psychopath wall. Shihag was left speechless as the frustration over his patient's antics reached a boiling point. Lai Fu, with a determined grip on Shihag's shoulder, conveyed his final message. With a soulless stare, Lai Fu regarded Shihag's silence as a tacit agreement to his demands. Without batting an eye, he revved up the ambulance's engine, signaling his readiness to zoom away from the mental hospital. Lai Fu experienced a weight lifting off his shoulders as he drove away from the mental hospital, bidding farewell to Shihag. Shihag's nurses exchanged worried glances as they observed their boss's gloomy expression. Meanwhile, Shihag, realizing the storm that awaited him, took a deep breath. He then inquired about Lin Fan's well-being. Lin Fan responded positively to Shihag's inquiry about his well-being, indicating that he was doing fine. Meanwhile, Zhang also responded affirmatively with a smile, seemingly unfazed by the situation. Shihag felt dismayed as Lin Fan and Zhang narrowly escaped yet another life-threatening situation. Later that night, they were both returned to their room at the mental hospital. Lin Fan was focused on training his mind, while Zhang resisted being tied up during their time in the mental hospital. Lin Fan casually mentioned to Zhang that he's been practicing a form of soul meditation taught by the crazy girl in his head. And now, Lin Fan savored the sensation of energy flowing through him. Zhang was overjoyed to hear all the details, eagerly assuming that their experiments had been successful. Lin Fan confirmed that his universal level skill and electricity skill were indeed successful, adding another achievement to their unusual experiments. Lin Fan and Zhang shared a unique bond, finding comfort in each other's understanding as they were happy with the progress they had made. While Lin Fan and Zhang were resting in their rooms, Shihag decided to check up on them, perhaps curious about their latest escapades. Shihag was relieved to find Lin Fan and Zhang resting peacefully without causing any disturbances. However, the two nurses remained on edge, aware that the duo still harbored some wild and unpredictable ideas. The nurses decided to keep quiet about Lin Fan and Zhang's quirky plan involving a hammer, since finding a hammer in a mental hospital isn't exactly a walk in the park. Meanwhile, Shihag, enjoying a brief respite from the usual chaos caused by the duo, saw this moment as a rare chance to kick back and relax. Meanwhile, a woman strolled through the city streets. She was so engrossed in her phone as she exchanged messages with her friends. As she walked, a sudden heaviness in the air made her pause. A creeping sensation crawled up her spine, and she couldn't shake off the feeling of a looming presence behind her. The woman's fear escalated as she came face to face with a monstrous creature sporting large, menacing teeth. Unfortunately, her encounter with the creature ended in tragedy. The next morning, Lin Fan and Zhang found themselves still bound to their beds. Lin Fan's bandages seemed to have a mind of their own, slowly and mysteriously tearing apart. It was as if Lin Fan's body had undergone a miraculous transformation, causing his bandages to loosen and tear. To his surprise, he emerged with a healed body, devoid of scars, and even sporting a slightly more muscular build. Lin Fan, having achieved body enhancement, decided to wake up Zhang. However, Zhang was taken aback to find Lin Fan completely naked. Zhang was amazed to see Lin Fan's fully healed body, looking as good as new. He couldn't resist poking Lin Fan's abs and was impressed by their firmness. On the other hand, the system felt a sense of validation for the effort it put into training Lin Fan's body and achieving such remarkable results. Meanwhile, the electric engineer of the mental hospital was focused on his tasks, until he felt a presence behind him, causing him to startle. He suddenly felt a chill down his spine, like someone had just walked over his grave. He remembered the ghostly residents haunting the premises who experienced a terrible fate when they were alive, until a mysterious tap on his shoulder sent shivers down his spine. With a scream that could rival a banshee's wail, he turned around, and it was none other than Zhang. After the initial shock, he calmed down even though Zhang looked like a ghost. But then he remembered a seminar from Shihag about the peculiar duo, Lin Fan and Zhang. He immediately recognized Zhang as none other than the infamous patient from room 666. The engineer's realization sent another wave of shivers down his spine, causing him to tremble even more. But the truth was, Zhang was just trying to distract him to cover for Lin Fan's covert mission to acquire a hammer from the engineer's toolbox. With the hammer secured and their mission accomplished, Zhang and Lin Fan swiftly departed from the scene. The engineer's relief was palpable as he watched Zhang walk away and realized that it was really dangerous to work in the area. The engineer, motivated by his lucrative salary, returned to his work duties after the unsettling encounter with Zhang. As he reached for his trusty tools in the toolbox, he noticed that his hammer was missing. As the engineer scoured his surroundings for any sign of his missing hammer, a loud banging noise echoed from room 666. He made a bold decision to approach room 666, fully aware of the potential dangers lurking within. With trembling hands and a nervous sweat trickling down his brow, the engineer approached the door of room 666. Instead of swinging it wide open, he opened a small part of the door to sneak a peek inside. As the engineer's eyes adjusted to the dim light of room 666, his heart skipped a beat when he finally spotted his missing hammer. There, amidst the flickering shadows, Zhang and Lin Fan were deeply engrossed in what appeared to be a new experiment. The engineer got chills down his spine. As the engineer stood frozen in shock, his worst fears materialized when Zhang's keen senses detected his presence in the room. As the engineer bolted down the hallway, his cries of witnessing a crime scene echoed through the corridors. Little did he know, amidst the chaos and his dramatic exit, Lin Fan's chest was undergoing a transformation. The system, taking into account Lin Fan's mental instability, made another autonomous decision after the successful enhancement of his chest. This time, it set its sights on enhancing Lin Fan's arms, perhaps aiming to create a more balanced and formidable physique for him. The engineer was like a leaf caught in a hurricane of fear and disbelief after his escapade in room 666. As the nurses tried to guide him back to the scene, he wailed like a banshee, convinced that Zhang was a psychopath. But as they tiptoed into room 666, they were met by a room so tidy and clean. The engineer was confused, like he had stepped into the wrong room. On the other hand, Lin Fan and Zhang were in their own world, sipping on refreshing soy milk drinks. Lin Fan requested a Coca-Cola to go along with his soy milk, while Zhang contemplated a spicy drink. Shihag, accustomed to dealing with the unpredictable antics of Lin Fan and Zhang, found himself at a loss for words. To ease the engineer's anxiety, Shihag told him that he was simply imagining things. The engineer poured out his heart that he's ready to bid farewell and just wanted his hammer back. Though the engineer cheekily quipped that he'd need his salary doubled if he was going to keep dealing with the hospital's wild adventures, Shihag was surprised to find out that the crazy duo had managed to get their hands on the missing hammer. Shihag immediately told Lin Fan to hand over the missing hammer. But Lin Fan played innocent and pretended he was clueless about any hammers. Lin Fan's attempt to play innocent was short-lived, as the observant group noticed an unusual and hard object in his pants. A moment of awkward silence descended as they all pondered whether it was indeed the missing hammer or Lin Fan's hard ding-dong. Lin Fan quickly grabbed the object from his pants, revealing it to be the engineer's hammer. Without delay, Shihag asked Lin Fan to hand over the hammer. As Lin Fan insisted on Shihag retrieving the hammer from his hands, Shihag took a bold risk and asked Lin Fan to throw the hammer at him instead. This sparked a tense debate between the two, with the onlookers growing increasingly nervous as they feared the situation might spiral out of control. Realizing tomorrow was his birthday, Shihag decided he didn't want a funeral today. So he bravely approached Lin Fan, who promptly made him sweat more than any workout ever could. The nurses were on edge as Shihag braved the risky task of approaching an insane patient. Shihag, on the other hand, felt like his heart was playing a drum solo with every step he took. Shihag's hand trembled as he reached for the hammer, expecting drama but finding Lin Fan oddly calm. Surprisingly, he snatched the hammer without any problems. Shihag grinned like he was giving out candy as he handed the hammer to the engineer, making it seem like a walk in the park. Meanwhile, the engineer was sweating bullets. The engineer took a closer look at Shihag and noticed beads of sweat dripping down his face. As midnight approached at the mental hospital, everyone was gathered to watch a news report about the monsters, and the government and Elite Four were mentioned as sending help to address the issue. But two patients thought the news reporter on TV was their family member. One believed she was his wife, while the other thought she was his daughter. The old man was shocked as he was convinced he had just met his father-in-law. Two patients in the mental hospital hugged, thinking the news reporter was their family member, leaving the nurses scratching their heads. Meanwhile, Zhang joined the confusion, asking Lin Fan if he knew the reporter as well. Lin Fan made an outrageous claim, insisting that the news reporter was his girlfriend. However, Zhang doubted him. Amidst the chaos, the government spotted a monster near King Shan Street in Mayan High City, sending ripples of concern throughout the world. In response, one of the Elite Fours underwent her power test and geared up to hunt down the monster mentioned in the recent news. One of the Elite Fours, named Zhang Ying, expressed confidence that they would swiftly eliminate the monster with their level 2 powers. Determined and united, Zhang Ying and her teammates decided to treat the monster hunt as their secret mission. They planned on, after eliminating the monster, they would bring it back to showcase their true potential. Fueled by determination and their elite status as students from 4 prestigious schools, they were ready to fulfill their mission. Going back in the mental hospital, the news reporter announced that it was February 29th. This left Zhang bewildered as he was convinced that today should be the 7th of March. Lin Fan teased Zhang about his watch being wrong, but Zhang defended his luxury timepiece, claiming it cost a fortune. Their banter caught the attention of a curious patient who wanted to inspect the extravagant watch for himself. The patient expressed confidence, suggesting that Zhang's watch simply needed a minor fix that would ensure its functionality for a lifetime. The patient offered to fix Zhang's watch for free since Zhang had splurged on it. Armed with a tool that looked like a pen, he got to work, probably thinking he was the hospital's resident watch magician. In a surprisingly short time, the patient completed fixing Zhang's watch. Zhang expressed satisfaction, despite the fact that all the patient did was draw a watch on Zhang's wrist rather than actually fixing it. Later on, Zhang was devastated in his room, realizing that he had been scammed by the man pretending to fix his watch. To console Zhang, Lin Fan decided to grab a drink from their mini fridge. Zhang chilled out as his bestie Lin Fan worked his magic of comfort. Zhang quenched his thirst with a refreshing cold spice drink, instantly feeling rejuvenated. Lin Fan, on the other hand, heard the voices in his head again. Zhang's intrigued and wants to know what she's chatting about in Lin Fan's noggin. Just as Zhang was ready to dig deeper into Lin Fan's mind mystery, the system swooped in and decided to take Lin Fan out for a mission in the imagined world. And his only way to get out was to finish his mission. The system dropped the bombshell that Lin Fan's mission was to aid Chen Yang in overcoming school bullies. And just like that, Lin Fan found himself catapulted into another dimension. Lin Fan blinked and found himself surrounded by a sea of bright pink and girly Daker. He was put in someone else's body, as if his soul had taken a spontaneous vacation from his own flesh and blood. As Lin Fan's awareness grew, he noticed his face seemed to have taken a trip back in time, looking noticeably younger. Completely bewildered, he tried to make sense of the unfamiliar surroundings he found himself in. Lin Fan took a peek in the mirror and was surprised that he had become a girl. Turns out, he became Chen Yang, who's currently gearing up for school. Lin Fan felt like he'd just been hit by a plot twist tornado. It dawned on Lin Fan that Chen Yang was actually a boy who liked to rock the girl look as he touched his bikini area. As he got out of the room, Chen Yang's mom whipped up a delicious breakfast of hot dumplings and rice. Over their meal, she reassured him that his bullies were just being playful and encouraged him to stay focused on his studies. But Lin Fan's attention seemed to be more on the delicious food. Chen Yang's mom encouraged Lin Fan to prioritize studying above all else, believing he would do well that way. But then she got a bit flabbergasted when he decided to turn his rice into cereal with milk. Lin Fan grabbed the bowl of milk and was all set to chow down on his rice-turned-cereal creation. Without a moment's hesitation, Lin Fan dove into his unique food concoction, showing no reservations about his unconventional dining choices. Chen Yang's mom was absolutely terrified when Lin Fan confidently declared that he had made soup out of his rice and milk. Her shock grew as she witnessed this unexpected side of him, as if she was staring at a completely different person. Lin Fan, now experiencing the world through Chen Yang's eyes, marveled at the sights outside. Given that he was now in Chen Yang's body, he took it upon himself to stand in for Chen Yang at school. Lin Fan settled into the bus seat like any ordinary commuter. As the bus rumbled along, a cute girl scanned for an empty seat without luck. Opting to stand, she found herself unable to reach the overhead handles for support. Lin Fan showed his gentlemanly side by offering his seat to the cute girl on the bus. However, things took a twist when one of Chen Yang's bullies, Zhang Hao, also hopped on board. Zhang Hao's temper flared when he realized that Lin Fan hadn't saved a seat for him. Zhang Hao tried to flex his bully muscles because Lin Fan offered his seat to the cute girl. Zhang Hao tried to remind Lin Fan of the good old days when they had fun bullying Chen Yang. He remembered when he and his friend enjoyed bullying Chen Yang like it was some kind of twisted amusement park ride. Since Lin Fan was inhabiting Chen Yang's body, he remained unfazed by Hao's attempts at intimidation. However, Hao couldn't shake off the eerie feeling when he looked into Lin Fan's seemingly soulless eyes. The cute girl jumped in to defend Lin Fan, explaining that he was simply being kind and generous by giving up his seat. As everyone settled into their seats on the bus, a man suddenly burst in, shouting for help. He urgently begged the driver to start the bus immediately, warning that there was a psychopath on the loose. As panicked people outside rushed to safety, the psychopath somehow made it onto the bus. The atmosphere turned tense as the maniac threatened to chop them up. Hao's tough guy act vanished in an instant when faced with the psychopath's presence. Amidst the fear and tension, Lin Fan stood out as the only one who remained composed, even as the psychopath closed in on them. Tension soared as the psychopath took an interest in the cute girl. Despite the intensity of the situation, she did her best to stay calm. The cute girl's scream pierced the air as the psychopath singled her out as his target. In a horrifying turn of events, blood splattered across the bus. Hao was left stunned by the gruesome scene unfolding before him. Thankfully, Lin Fan reacted swiftly, managing to intercept the butcher knife in the psychopath's hand. Lin Fan bravely confronted the psychopath about his violent tendencies, questioning his desire to harm others. However, the psychopath was actually more offended when Lin Fan called him a monk. The psychopath trembled with rage as he attempted to wrestle the butcher knife from Lin Fan's grasp. Hao and the other passengers on the bus were astonished to see Lin Fan's composure, unfazed by the wound on his hand despite the intense situation. The psychopath sensed an overwhelming aura of calmness emanating from Lin Fan, who stood unwavering in the face of danger. Eventually, feeling overpowered, the psychopath relented and released the butcher knife he had been clutching. Feeling intimidated by Lin Fan's fearless demeanor, the psychopath slowly backed away. The psychopath stumbled and fell to the floor, visibly shaken, as he questioned Lin Fan's sanity for daring to confront him. In a stern and serious tone, Lin Fan reiterated his question, pressing the psychopath about his intentions to harm others. Finally, the ambulance and police arrived on the scene, bringing relief to everyone on the bus. The cute girl and the other passengers received medical attention from the nurses. As everyone exited the bus, the psychopath and Lin Fan remained inside, but the psychopath seemed visibly afraid of Lin Fan. Lin Fan attempted to return the psychopath's knives, but the psychopath was too scared and insisted that Lin Fan keep them instead. Lin Fan shrugged off the psychopath and left him in the bus. Outside, Hao was still grappling with the trauma of the incident. Lin Fan went to check on Hao, but it seemed like Hao was now spooked by Lin Fan. From Hao's perspective, Lin Fan appeared to be the true psychopath, sporting a sinister smile that sent chills down Hao's spine. In reality, Lin Fan was just trying to be friendly, but his smile probably looked more like a horror movie poster to Hao. Hao attempted to reciprocate Lin Fan's friendly gesture, but he couldn't help trembling with lingering fear. Lin Fan, in his friendly mood, forgot about his hand wound and offered it for a shake with Hao. Hao was puzzled, wondering why Lin Fan's hand felt so sticky during the handshake. Lin Fan was happy to meet a classmate of Chen Yan, while Hao's energy drained as he realized he had touched Lin Fan's blood during the handshake. The nurse finally approached Lin Fan and praised him for his bravery, acknowledging how he stayed calm despite having a severe wound on his hand. As the nurse attended to him, Lin Fan explained that he saw pain as part of his training and that his mental strength allowed him to handle it without much trouble. The nurse found Lin Fan's talk about pain and mental strength a bit odd, leaving her with a strange impression of him. The police eventually apprehended the psychopath and led him to their car. However, when the psychopath caught sight of Lin Fan, he was startled and once again felt a surge of fear. The psychopath made a desperate attempt to escape, pleading with the cops that Lin Fan was the real psychopath. One of the officers then approached Lin Fan, praising him for his bravery and commending his exemplary behavior for society. To acknowledge Lin Fan's bravery, the police promised to contact the school and arrange for him to receive recognition for his actions. However, Lin Fan prioritized going to school over seeking acknowledgement from the police. From the cops' perspective, Lin Fan's humility stood out. He insisted that Lin Fan deserved recognition and proposed giving him a day off from school and suggested taking him to the hospital for a checkup. Lin Fan responded to the cop with the same explanation about pain and mental strength that he had given to the nurse. This left the cop feeling perplexed and decided not to intervene further, sensing that Lin Fan was a weirdo. Lin Fan arrived at Chuangwai High School and was greeted by the familiar scent of books. Lin Fan took in the smell of books and thought if his buddy Zhang were around, he'd probably turn into a top-notch professor. But Lin Fan recalled that Zhang's knowledge could sometimes scare people as they were both insane. Lin Fan had second thoughts about the idea of Zhang becoming a teacher. Lin Fan started his day as a high school boy in Chen Yang's body. Lin Fan went to room 12A2 for his class. Lin Fan glanced around and confirmed that he was indeed in Chen Yang's classroom. Since he arrived early, only a few of his classmates were present at that time. Lin Fan appeared attentive as he settled into his seat in Chen Yang's classroom. Deciding to take a short rest, he relaxed before the class period started. Lin Fan drifted into a flashback from his younger days. Lin Fan remembered when his mother visited him and questioned if he was capable of attending school, given his condition was not suitable for schooling. He vividly recalled his mother's sadness and disappointment that he couldn't experience a normal school life. All of a sudden, one of Chen Yang's bullies approached Lin Fan and started poking him with a pen. It turned out that one of Chen Yang's seatmates, a girl, was angry because Lin Fan's arm crossed the line of her desk. She expected Lin Fan to show a sign of weakness in response to her frustration. The girl remembered that Chen Yang would usually show his sensitive side whenever she tried to hurt him. However, since Lin Fan now embodied Chen Yang, all she received in response was nonchalance. The girl was confused because she expected Lin Fan to react or show fear. In an attempt to provoke a response, she tried thrusting her pen deeper into Lin Fan's arm. Lin Fan found it humorous that the girl was trying to hurt him, considering he had played more daring games with his friends at the mental hospital. However, his lack of reaction made the girl even more terrified of him. She leaned in for a closer look at the wound she had caused on Lin Fan's arm. As she pulled out the pen, blood spurted out. She ran out of the room, crying as the blood splattered onto her face, leaving her shocked and distressed. Lai Zhu, who was revealed to be Hao's girlfriend, heard about the incident earlier. Later, Hao's friend vowed to bully Lin Fan after school for making Lai Zhu cry. Hao, still frightened by the earlier incident, insisted that his friend should not interfere with Lin Fan. However, his friend was confused, as they only knew Lin Fan as being gay and found Hao's labeling of Lin Fan as abnormal puzzling. Lin Fan decided to approach Hao and his friend to make friendly acquaintances. He wore a genuine smile as he interacted with them. Hao's friend initially thought that Lin Fan was just like the same old Chen Yang who didn't care much. However, he was surprised when Hao stood up and extended a handshake to Lin Fan. Hao's friend noticed how awkward and visibly scared Hao appeared while being around Lin Fan. Hao's friend couldn't understand why Hao was so scared of Lin Fan, especially considering their past behavior of bullying him daily. As their class period started, the teacher instructed them to learn the poem assigned previously. It caused tension as the teacher was known for her strict and temperamental nature. The tension escalated when the teacher called upon Chen Yang, also known as Lin Fan, to read a part of the assigned poem. Lin Fan's classmates assumed that his mind was blank at that moment, considering Chen Yang's reputation for being easily frightened. The shock rippled through the class as Lin Fan stood up and boldly admitted that he didn't remember anything from the poem, offering a sincere apology. Even the teacher was taken aback by his honesty. The teacher felt as though her sixth sense had suddenly kicked in, sensing that Lin Fan was acting strangely. Lin Fan, however, simply smiled and asked if he could sit back down. The teacher felt a bit insecure due to Lin Fan's smile and decided to let him sit down without scolding him. It left everyone in disbelief, like the world had suddenly turned topsy-turvy. After the class finally dismissed, all the students drifted into their own little worlds. Lin Fan, too, was lost in his own thoughts and world. Lin Fan was up to his old tricks again, holding a key and eyeing a socket like a mad scientist cooking up his next big experiment. The bully was furious because Lin Fan was asserting himself, particularly with his friend Hao and the teacher. However, the bully got even more triggered when he realized that Lin Fan was lost in his own thoughts and not paying attention to him. The bully continued to assert his dominance by raising his voice, but Lin Fan remained focused on his thoughts. He believed that electric current could make a human body stronger and planned to test this theory by sticking the key into the socket. The bully, infuriated, dared Lin Fan to go ahead with his plan of using electric current for body enhancement. Lin Fan didn't waste a second and plunged the key into the socket like he was on a quest for superpowers. The bully was shocked by the risky activity. However, the bully got zapped when he touched Lin Fan, but Lin Fan was as cool as a cucumber, unfazed by the electric shock. Lin Fan's classmate thought the bully Zhu Qian could dance, but little did he know, Zhu Qian's moves were more shocking than electrifying. But Lin Fan's classmate, after touching Zhu Qian, also experienced the shock from the electricity. Some of their clueless classmates joined in and touched Lin Fan and Zhu Qian, resulting in a chain reaction of electric shocks that zapped everyone in the vicinity. Lin Fan was disappointed because the amperage wasn't strong enough for his body enhancement training. When he stood up and turned around, he was puzzled to see his male classmates passing out after the electric shock. Lin Fan attempted to convince his classmates not to sleep on the floor to avoid getting sick. Perplexed by the situation, he decided to head to the toilet, hoping for a moment of clarity. The next teacher appeared cheerful and enthusiastic about teaching trigonometric functions to the class. He exuded warmth and joy as he welcomed his students and prepared to start the lesson. The next teacher was shocked to see all the students passed out, causing him to drop his books. He panicked and called for help, struggling to speak clearly due to his shock and concern for the students' well-being. Fortunately, everyone was still alive, albeit in a deep slumber. The teacher hoped that help would arrive soon, as he was baffled by why his students had suddenly passed out. After the teacher's call for help, a bunch of ambulances arrived at the school. Lin Fan remained genuinely clueless about why his classmates fainted. It led him to find his high school life rather scary. The news about the students being electrocuted spread throughout the school the following day. It was reported that only one student survived, and they identified him as the guy who was constantly bullied. Lin Fan starts his day at school, and a shy girl calls out his name from behind a tree. She is startled when Lin Fan suddenly appears in front of her, almost as if he teleported. The shy girl steps forward, but appears shy and flustered in Lin Fan's presence. The shy girl seemed ready to confess her love for Lin Fan as she prepared a love letter behind her back. But then, another bully intervened and stole the love letter the shy girl was holding. The bully was delighted in the opportunity to tease and embarrass her. The bully's name was Tang Jai, accompanied by his two friends. After Tang Jai stole the love letter, the shy girl bravely asked him to return it. Instead of feeling remorseful, Tang Jai and his friends laughed at the cute girl having a crush on Lin Fan. The shy girl felt increasingly embarrassed, realizing that her confession didn't go as planned. Meanwhile, Lin Fan grew frustrated. Tang Jai was taken aback when Lin Fan swiftly snatched the letter from his hand. His shock turned to fury as he felt someone was trying to oppose him. Lin Fan confronted Tang Jai, questioning why he took the letter. In response, Tang Jai attempted to appear intimidating. Tang Jai attempted to mock them and demanded for Lin Fan to read the letter aloud, promising to stop teasing them if he complied. However, Lin Fan prioritized the girl's feelings and asked her consent, which she refused in response. Lin Fan firmly stated that he wouldn't read the letter to avoid making the girl uncomfortable. In response, Tang Jai tried to assert dominance by punching a nearby tree, but Lin Fan remained composed. Tang Jai issued a final warning to Lin Fan, demanding that he read the letter. However, Lin Fan remained silent, examining the hole that Tang Jai had punched into the tree. The shy girl, feeling pressured, yelled at Lin Fan to read the letter aloud to defuse the situation. Tang Jai's friends joined in, urging Lin Fan to comply with the demand. Lin Fan boldly asserted that Tang Jai's friends couldn't defeat him, which is why he refused to comply. This confident response from Lin Fan only fueled Tang Jai's anger further. Tang Jai's friends raised their voices, threatening Lin Fan with a beating. However, Lin Fan chose to showcase his strength by punching the tree. With a powerful strike, Lin Fan shattered the tree into two, astonishing everyone present. The sheer ease with which he accomplished this feat left everyone speechless. Tang Jai and his friends remained frozen, not moving a muscle, after witnessing Lin Fan's impressive display of strength. While the bullies were bothering Lin Fan, a concerned classmate took the initiative to report the bullying to the school's president. Upon learning about the situation, the president was furious that one of his schoolmates was being bullied. The school president, filled with anger, prepared to confront Tang Jai and his friends. However, upon reaching the scene with the two girls, everyone was shocked like something unexpected that left them all surprised. Turns out, Lin Fan confronted the bullies in front of the school president and the girls, admonishing them for their bullying behavior. He demanded that Tang Jai repeat after him, acknowledging that looting other people's things and bullying are wrong. Tang Jai, who had a reputation as a tough gangster, trembled as he repeated the words demanded by Lin Fan. Lin Fan continued to lecture Tang Jai about the necessity of asking for consent, while Tang Jai was visibly frightened. After Tang Jai learned his lesson about bullying, Lin Fan gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. Tang Jai decided to go home and enjoy a hearty meal, taking Lin Fan's advice to heart about eating more. The bullies finally decided to go home, but the school president was confused like something is wrong with the plot of their lives. He asked the two girls if Lin Fan was the bully, but they clarified that the president's assumption was incorrect. Meanwhile, Lin Fan's gesture of returning the letter to the girl added a sweet touch to the atmosphere. However, the girl clarified that the letter was actually dedicated to Lin Fan. Lin Fan had a light bulb moment when he remembered his buddy Zhang's tip about pink letters being love letters. The girl didn't beat around the bush and went straight for the love confession, asking Lin Fan to be her main squeeze. However, the school president felt a bit sour about the lovey-dovey vibe. But their hopes were dashed when Lin Fan swiftly turned down the girl's proposal to be his girlfriend. Lin Fan clarified that his ultimate goal in life was to train and become the strongest man, which left the girl even more shocked when he bluntly stated that she didn't deserve him. The girl ran off in tears, shouting at Lin Fan that he was the one who didn't deserve her. Meanwhile, Lin Fan couldn't help but feel that girls were truly difficult to understand. After the dramatic events, everyone involved decided to move on and continue with their lives. Before Lin Fan took over Chen Yang's body, Chen Yang was known for being sweet and sensitive, which often made him the target of teasing. Despite the teasing from others, there was one girl who appreciated Chen Yang for who he was and liked him genuinely. The girl who confessed to Lin Fan was the one Chen Yang had always hoped would be his first love. Chen Yang prayed for the love he desired from her and was ready to date her regardless of any obstacles. But as the long-awaited moment arrived for Chen Yang to express his feelings to the girl he liked, Lin Fan took over his body and rejected the love of his life. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Lin Fan's classmates were recovering after being electrocuted. The doctor at the hospital was angry about how young people nowadays define fun, rather than focusing on studying harder. Zhu Qian panicked when the doctor threatened to cut his expensive Armani clothes as a consequence. The doctor and nurse were puzzled by Zhu Qian's seemingly irrational behavior, which made him appear somewhat insane. Eventually, Zhu Qian passed out from his overreaction. The doctor gave Zhu Qian a good scolding, blaming him for playing a risky game and suggested that his parents might have to burn his clothes at his funeral. Nevertheless, as the evening rolled in, the doctor continued to take care of all the students. They were all wrapped up in bandages to help heal their burnt skin, sharing a room together. Amidst the pain they were feeling, they also wondered aloud why their parents hadn't arrived yet. As they pondered what had happened to them, Zhu Qian jumped in with a quip, saying they got zapped by electricity. The memories flooded back as they realized they were zapped in a chain reaction, with the blame eventually falling on Zhu Qian. Zhu Qian, feeling the weight of their accusations, stood up and asked his classmates to stop pointing fingers. Zhu Qian ranted about how it was all Lin Fan's fault for insanely putting the key onto the socket as soon as he touched him on the shoulder. The realization hit them hard that they were all zapped because of Lin Fan's antics. However, their concern grew as they couldn't see Lin Fan in the room with them. Zhu Qian speculated that Lin Fan might still be in the emergency room since he was the one who triggered the electric shock. However, one of their classmates expressed concern, fearing that Lin Fan had passed away. A heavy silence filled the room as they all shared the same concern. They grieved for Lin Fan, realizing that despite Chen Yang's feminine trait, he was not annoying at all. As they discussed Lin Fan's situation, a sudden visitor arrived. They eagerly anticipated seeing either a doctor for updates or their parents for comfort. To their surprise, the visitor turned out to be none other than Lin Fan himself, who wanted to see them. Their jaws practically hit the floor as they realized that Lin Fan was perfectly fine, despite their earlier worries about his well-being. Lin Fan, unaware of the electric shock incident, assumed they had fainted from studying too hard and decided to treat them with snacks. Their shock only deepened as they realized that Lin Fan hadn't been affected by the incident. Lin Fan then explained that he had brought 2 smoked sausages and a carton of milk for each of them as a treat. However, their confusion persisted as they couldn't comprehend how Lin Fan was unscathed despite being the one who had put the key in the socket. Lin Fan attempted to be kind by offering the snacks, but Zhu Qian, filled with suspicion, refused to eat them. He believed that Lin Fan must have used some underhanded tricks, considering he was the only one who hadn't ended up in the hospital. Meanwhile, Zhu Qian's friend Hao tried to be friendly and apologized to Lin Fan for Zhu Qian's rudeness. However, Zhu Qian underestimated Lin Fan, calling Hao insane for being friendly with Lin Fan. The atmosphere took an even crazier turn when one of their classmates received a message in their group chat. Everyone trembled with fear as they anxiously checked their phones. In the group chat, someone spilled the beans about the earlier incident where Lin Fan had dominated the school's big boss, Tang Jai. Zhu Tian quickly put down his phone. and made a conscious effort to be friendly towards Lin Fan after hearing about the incident involving Tang Jai. Meanwhile, on top of the hospital building, a man stood gazing at the sky, savoring the moment as if it were his last chance to appreciate life. The man remembered a heart-wrenching moment during his hospital stay when his lover callously threw divorce papers at him. She was so cruel that she was even accompanied by her new partner, while he was battling illness. The man expressed his anguish, lamenting how his lover could have waited for him to pass away. The man decided that this will be his final days in Earth as he took the leap of fate. He was still saddened over the fact that he and his wife had been married for a decade, yet he was discarded so easily. Going back to Lin Fan and his classmates, they were curious about the size of the tree that Lin Fan had effortlessly torn apart. Lin Fan pointed outside the window to show his classmates the size of the tree that he had torn apart. But a man suddenly jumped in front of Lin Fan as he opened the window. They were all startled to see the man trying to end himself. However, thanks to Lin Fan's quick reflexes and agility, he managed to catch the man with just one arm, preventing a potential accident. They were all surprised by Lin Fan's quick action in saving the man's life. However, despite his heroics, Lin Fan's body couldn't escape human limitations, and he ended up breaking his shoulder. But on the other hand, the man was surprised when Lin Fan caught him, as he had thought it would be the end for him. Lin Fan swiftly used his other arm to pull the surprised man into their room, ensuring his safety. Lin Fan's classmates were amazed at how he caught the man with just one arm. Lin Fan then confronted the man and asked him why he wanted to end his life. The man poured out his anguish about his cheating wife and how she disrespected him by flaunting her new lover. Lin Fan comforted the man with a pat on the back, offering that in times of bitterness, it's okay to cry, but eventually, one can overcome the challenges. Lin Fan's comforting words touched the man's soft spot, bringing tears to his eyes. The man, deeply moved by Lin Fan's words of comfort, immediately hugged Lin Fan as if those words were exactly what he needed in that moment. He burst into tears while Lin Fan continued to comfort him. Later on, the doctors found the man and were surprised that he was saved by Lin Fan. The nurses escorted the man, and the doctor inquired from Lin Fan about how he had saved the man. However, Hao noticed that Lin Fan's shoulder had been broken. Despite the severity of his injury, Lin Fan showed no outward reaction. His classmates were once again shocked by Lin Fan's composure, as he maintained a straight face even though his arms were bleeding. Lin Fan casually brushed off the concern about his injuries since he can fix himself up later. The doctors and nurses couldn't help but exchange uneasy glances, wondering if they had just stumbled upon the hospital's resident daredevil. Zhu Tian and Hao, being suck-ups, showered Lin Fan with praise and even considered him their boss now. They took a photo of Lin Fan's injured arm and proudly posted it on their group chat, bragging about how brave and resilient Lin Fan was. Even Tang Jai joined in on the praise, attempting to suck up to Lin Fan by asking him to be his new boss. Later on, Lin Fan continued to receive medical attention and care from the doctors at the emergency room. Lin Fan asked the doctors not to administer anesthetics because he believed that pain made him stronger. This puzzled the doctors and nurses, who were concerned about Lin Fan's unusual request and his familiarity with the emergency room environment. The doctor assumed that Lin Fan must be losing a significant amount of blood due to his seemingly erratic behavior. Despite Lin Fan's attempts to negotiate with the doctors and express that he didn't need anesthetics, the doctor administered it while they were chatting. Lin Fan's demeanor quickly shifted as the anesthesia took effect, making him talkative and cheerful as he discussed money matters. However, as within moments, Lin Fan drifted off to sleep. While Lin Fan was asleep, the system notified him that Chen Yang had gained significant respect and would no longer be bullied. As a reward, Chen Yang would receive 1 Kaian Chui Bai Lion Art, a top-class level type, and 2 Kai Zhang practicing materials. The system initiated a countdown, signaling that Chen Yang would return to his real body, and Lin Fan would revert to his original state in the mental hospital. Lin Fan returned to his original state before he left, and Zhang asked him about the voices he heard in his head. However, Lin Fan's reaction left Zhang confused, as he couldn't quite understand what had just transpired. though, Lin Fan recalled the exact question Jang had asked him before. In response, Jang simply nodded, seemingly enjoying his refreshing spice cold drink. Lin Fan informed Jang that according to the voice in his head, he was in an illusion realm where he had become a femboy wearing girly pajamas. Meanwhile, in the illusion realm, Chen Yang was hospitalized, and his mother was by his side. She expressed immense joy when Chen Yang finally woke up from his slumber. Chen Yang, after returning to the illusion realm, was in deep pain from his broken shoulder. His cries of agony caused his mother to panic as she witnessed his distress. The next day, Chen Yang decided to go to school showing resilience despite the pain from his injuries. Chen Yang felt afraid to enter school alone, filled with anxiety and hoping that either his mom would return or that he wouldn't face bullying upon his arrival. As Chen Yang was about to enter the school, all his past bullies suddenly appeared in front of him. Chen Yang was filled with fear, worried that his past bullies might gang up on him and cause him harm. As Chen Yang moved forward, he noticed that everyone was looking at him with serious and unsmiling expressions, adding to his sense of unease. Chen Yang couldn't quite understand why, but everyone's demeanor seemed unusually fierce and intense. But what startled him the most was when all his classmates suddenly kneeled down before him, creating a path for him to walk through. Chen Yang's face turned pale as news spread through their school that he was perceived as the type of person who would face gangs with a serious and determined attitude. Despite his fear and the unexpected turn of events, Chen Yang made an effort to maintain his composure. Chen Yang, previously timid and sensitive, now holds the position of the new boss at school. However, despite his transformation into a brave and respected individual, he lost the love of his life. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to contribute further, you can now buy me a coffee. Every little bit helps in creating more quality content for you. Just click the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video.